Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Backyard Adventures. In today's episode, we're going to experiment with using deer meat to cook Chicago-style deep dish pizza. Stay tuned. All right, welcome to the kitchen. Today we are going to do a little experimenting. We have, for our ingredients, we just have a classic pizza crust. This is the pre-made, you just roll out. I think it'd be a lot of fun to try to make your own. I'm just a little too lazy for that. But you're gonna want a pizza crust, whether you make it yourself or get some crust. You're gonna want some pizza sauce, and you could make your own there as well, but I like something a little chunky. This one's not so chunky, so I'm gonna add in some tomatoes that I'm gonna cube up and contribute. I've got a little Parmesan for the topping, but the main ingredient is, of course, our deer meat. So I've got some fresh ground meat from a buck that Joel killed, and then we've got some mozzarella slices. We'll use that. And then our main seasoning will be oregano and basil, with always a little garlic salt. You can't cook anything without garlic salt, right? So these are our ingredients, and we're gonna go ahead and jump in. Okay, we're gonna get started by getting our crust ready. Now, one thing you can do is, if you have one of those like legit pizza dishes that have sides, that would actually be helpful. A flat pan doesn't really get the job done with deep dish pizza, but I can't figure out an alternative, so we're just gonna go ahead and use just a traditional round pizza stone. And like I said, I'm just going to use this roll-out crust because I'm a little too lazy to make my own crust, but you can have a lot of fun with that if you wanted to go all out on this recipe. So here we go. I'm just gonna go ahead and dump this out here. Now, what we want to do is we want to create sides because our pizza to be deep dish, we gotta have sides. We're gonna stack it full of a lot of ingredients, and so I'm gonna try to round it out just a hair. But what I really have to do is I gotta figure out a way to get some sides on this dough. So I'm really, it's not gonna be pretty. I don't know how to cook pretty. Lots of people worry a lot about presentation, and they know what to do to make things attractive. That's not me. I don't cook that way. I cook for taste, and then whatever it looks like, who cares? Today's one of those days where it's definitely not gonna be pretty. So we'll deal with that when the time comes. But what I really need to do is I need to make sure I've got to find a way to get some sides. You know what I could have done and probably would be helpful is to put this in like a glass Pyrex where I could really work the sides a little better. But as it is, I'm just gonna have to kind of, as we cook, the sides will take shape a little more. But the important part is we have some room to play with. We're gonna roll these sides up around all our thick toppings. Okay, so if you've ever had Chicago style pizza, that deep dish style, it's called deep dish for a reason. It's pretty thick, and what's interesting about Chicago style is that it kind of builds in reverse. So if you're making a pizza at home, just a typical traditional pizza, you're gonna have crust, you're gonna have sauce, you're gonna have meat, and then you're gonna have cheese. We're building this in exact reverse. So the first thing I'm gonna do is layer my pizza crust, pizza dough, with cheese. All right? So traditionally, this might go on top, but with Chicago style, we're putting the cheese down directly on the crust to start with. Now, you could certainly use shredded mozzarella, but I want a thick layer of cheese, so I'm gonna go ahead and use mozzarella slices so that I can make sure that it fully covers the crust. I want a good thick layer of cheese when we're all said and done here. So I'm gonna lay all this down. All right, I think we've got everything sufficiently covered. We got a good thick layer of cheese here. And And so you can make it as pretty and as thorough as you want, but the important part for me is I know I'm gonna have a good thick layer of cheese all the way across the bottom of this pizza. Okay, so next up we're gonna put our meat. And so I am going to take the ground venison that we processed a few weeks ago after harvesting some really great deer. And you can make the meat layer as thick or not as you want. I'm gonna do a thin layer here and just try to press down this meat and make it a thinner layer. It's kind of like cooking hamburgers with deer meat. You can make those as thick or as thin as you want as well. And in my case, I like a thin style hamburger, and I like a thin layer on my pizza too. So it's not going to take me all that much ground meat to do this. Now, obviously, you can do this recipe with beef. In fact, I gave this a try for the first time the other day after seeing somebody on social media doing this, but with beef. And I said, well, anything you can do with ground beef, you can do with ground venison. There's no reason you can't do that here too. So that's what we're doing. I tried it a couple of weeks ago. It was delicious. So I said, well, hey, I wanted to do it again today. And I thought, well, I'll turn on the camera. And if this gives anybody out there an idea for more ways to cook your venison, well, then there you go. Happy cooking. So just spreading out a thin layer of ground meat on our pizza dough, and that looks pretty thorough. I think for now we've got our meat, we got our cheese, and so I think we're in good shape. So we got 2 of our layers. This is so easy. We're almost done. You're gonna see it's gonna go quick from here. So here we go. Let's see what's next. So what's last, again, it's kind of interesting with Chicago style, what's last is our pizza sauce. So have fun if you want to experiment with making your own pizza sauce, but I'm going to cheat here, and I'm gonna put a pretty decently thick layer down right here, and then I'll kind of spread that out just a bit. I'll try to get it evenly spaced. For those of you who have Chicago style pizza frequently, it's very, very different than traditional pizza. It's sauce on top. It kind of looks unusual. The first time I remember trying it, I was grown in college and had it somewhere on the East Coast and in Boston, I think, and it really kind of threw me for a loop with the sauce that I would think of as being I just like a thin layer of sauce on a traditional pizza, kind of thin layer on bottom. And for the sauce to come out on top, it was something I had to get my head around a little bit. But it's really good once you've had it a few times and you just change your mindset. It's closer to lasagna than it is to pizza. And I think that's the key to appreciating it and having it the first time. Think lasagna more so than you think pizza. So the sauce is on top, and it's pretty thick. When you have Chicago style pizza somewhere, you're visiting relatives in Chicago or whatever you're doing, and you have Chicago style pizza that first time, you gotta get your head around it. The sauce is really thick. It's the top and final layer. So I've put a layer of sauce that is probably a little thicker than I would do with a traditional pizza. And because this pizza sauce is just pretty basic, it's nothing special to it, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cube up a little bit of tomato and add to it because I think it needs a little texture. This is just a thin pizza sauce that I've bought from the store, and I want a thicker sauce with a little more substance to it. So I'm gonna cube up a little bit of tomato and add to it just to give a little more texture. And so when we have this, again, I'm thinking more lasagna than I'm thinking pizza necessarily. And I want a little something that's gonna give a little more substance when we have this pizza. So here we go, just a little tomato to add to it, give it a little more oomph as we get ready to get this in the oven. So I've been preheating my oven, and really we're getting close to our last few steps here. I'm just going to put just a little more pizza sauce on top. I want lots and lots of pizza sauce. We got a thick layer of cheese, got a decent layer of venison, and now a good thick layer of our tomato sauce, pizza sauce, and tomatoes. And so it doesn't exactly look pretty if you're doing this for the first time. Again, because we built it in reverse, it doesn't look like pizza. When you put a traditional pizza in the oven you've made yourself, it looks like a pizza when you put it in the oven. When you look at this, you're not going to look at this and think pizza. But it's going to be good. You're going to enjoy it. It's a different taste, but it's a good taste. So for those of you who are big cheese lovers, you might go ahead, Mom and Dad will go ahead and put another layer of cheese. So you can certainly do that. But I'm just going to follow the traditional style of Chicago pizza, and I'm going to end with my layer of our pizza sauce and tomatoes. But I'm going to add a little Parmesan just to kind of thicken it up on top, add a little texture on top. So I'm going to give a good layer of pizza sauce, of Parmesan on top of our pizza sauce. All right, so good thick layer of Parmesan. Now, what really kind of is going to blend all the flavors together and give it that Chicago style pizza taste is going to be the seasonings that we use. And so I mentioned earlier there are 3 main seasonings here. You could do this right after you add your meat. You could have seasoned the meat layer. Honestly, I just forgot, but it's not too late. We're going to add some seasoning here on top. It'll soak down and cook down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a layer of garlic salt. Anytime I'm cooking with ground beef or ground venison, I like garlic salt to that's what I use in place of just traditional salt. So here goes a layer of garlic salt. And I'm going to season this pretty liberally with that. All right, so we got some garlic salt for the salt side. And then I think the main ingredient for pizza is really oregano. So I'm going to hit this really hard, really liberally with our oregano. This is what's going to give it that kind of pizza flavor that we are accustomed to. And I can just smell it as I sprinkle this out. This reminds me of Saturday nights at Pizza Hut as a kid in Denham Springs, Louisiana. All right, so we've got a very thick layer of oregano. And then lastly, we also are going to do some basil. This is just some crushed up basil leaves. And as you can see, I'm putting all this down pretty thick, and all that's going to bake down. So we've got our seasonings, all the ingredients are here. What I'm going to try to do in these last few minutes before I stick in the oven, I'm going to try to work this crust up. And what I'll do to try to get this crust to take shape is I'm going to put a little crease on the bottom edge. When I fold it up, I'm going to push the bottom edge down into the pan to try to give this an edge. I want this to have a side all the way around. And so I've made a square pizza, and hopefully this crust is going to stand up in the process of cooking. Now I will tell you to expect that this is going to be messy because we've got a whole layer of ground venison in this case all the way across. That venison is, as it cooks, it's going to let off some juice, so that juice has to go somewhere. Now I've tried to create these edges so it's going to stay in the pizza, but it's not an exact science. And so what's probably going to happen when we pull this out in about 25 minutes, we're probably going to have juice going everywhere. Okay, and again, that might be why it might be better to cook this in something that's got sides, like a a 9-inch Pyrex, 9x13 Pyrex, or something with sides, because juice is going to go. You've got the tomato sauce, you've got your ground beef or your ground venison, so juice is going to go somewhere. It's probably going to be a little messy when we pull it out, but I'm trying to make these sides give the pizza some shape and keep our pizza together. Okay, so we've got our crust, our cheese, our our ground venison, our pizza sauce, our toppings, our Parmesan, and all of our seasoning. Let's stick it in the oven. Okay, in we go. Let's do this very carefully. All right, it's in the oven. We're going to, we've got our oven at 350. you know, just a standard deal. I'm gonna set a timer for 25 minutes. I'm probably gonna check it at 20, but most likely it's coming out at 25 minutes. If you made it a little thicker, if you like a meat layer that's thicker, well, you might wanna go on to 30. If you like a crunchy, or I should say a crisp, hard crust, and you want that meat to be really cooked through and it's a thick layer, you might go on to 30. But I think with the way I've built this, I think 20 minutes or 25 minutes is gonna work great. So 25 minutes at 350, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, it's been 25 minutes at 350, and time's up. We're gonna take this pizza out and take a look and see what we got. Oh, it's heavy. We got a lot going on here. All right. Smells good, looks good. We're gonna let it cool just a second, and we're gonna give it a taste and see what we got. Okay, so you can see how the sides didn't stay perfectly intact, but you get the idea. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and try to serve some of this up. I mentioned there would be juice everywhere, and there is. That's just part of it. It's gonna get a little messy when it gets on the plate, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and cut into this and see what we got. All right. The juice is about to go everywhere. Okay, here we go. All right. Yeah, I love that cheese. Love that cheese. So, you can kind of see the layers here. And so we got all that thick sauce on top, and then the meat under that, and the cheese on the bottom and the crust. I think this is gonna be really yummy. I'm gonna let it cool just a second, and we're gonna give it a taste. I think it's gonna be pretty good. Okay, let's give it a taste and see what we got here. I'm excited. I think it's gonna be tasty. If it's anything like the first time I tried this, it was delicious. So we'll see, here goes. I really like that. I really like that. So again, it's a different flavor than if you're expecting, you know, your local pizza delivery. It's Chicago style, a lot of sauce, a lot of meat. Meat lovers, you're gonna like this if you've never had deep dish pizza Chicago style. So much meat, thick crust, the cheese, the heavy sauce and all the tomatoes. It's a hearty kind of pizza. It's not the typical little pizza that comes from your local delivery. This is really good. I think you're gonna enjoy it. Give it a try. You saw what we did here. It's super simple, very fast, and it's a lot of fun. It's very delicious. So I hope you enjoyed. Let us know how it turns out when you give it a try at your house.